Welcome all, Coleman Report Live, September 12th, 2019 edition. We have some cool panelists. Chris Hearn, CEO, Fountainhead Capital. He is one of the recent SBLC license acquirers. Suzy Grainger, DRDA, she's here to promote her free webinar about how to get people to transfer their 401ks for SBA equity injection. Katie Watucky, we hired her a couple months ago. She's done a great job, and she's going to talk about some of the articles she's written. So let's go to it. But we love to do poll questions and get your feedback. So this is hot in the news, and what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're heading into recession, yes or no? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because Chris is going to be penning an article about this very topic. So let's get the answers first, and then we'll get Chris's reaction. What do you think, Chris?
I think people need to stop reading so much financial media. That's what I think.
What is your article? What is the gist of your article that you're going to be releasing in Forbes, I guess, next week?
Yeah, probably next week. Well, if we're not careful, we're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're going to talk ourselves into a recession. But so far, the last month or so, just about every economic indicator that's come out doesn't show any signs that we're heading into a recession.
Did the stock market just
people are teeing off of is the inverted yield curve, but it's now not inverted any longer. So
did the stock market just hit an all-time high? Did I miss something on that?
I think Dow's back over 27, but I don't know. My point is, maybe we should all take a nice deep breath, be more mindful, maybe realize that there's actually pretty good times. Everybody I talk to is running around like a chicken with their head cut off, so busy and trying to find more hires. I think we may have a recession in a couple years, but I don't know that we're imminently heading into it. So maybe watch more Netflix and stop watching as much financial media.
Well, Lance Sexton and I always say there will be another recession, but he and I are not predicting it. I started my career in 1980 when prime was at 21.5%. There will be ups and downs. That's a normal cycle. And I think as underwriters, as lenders, we need to be aware of that. But I agree with you, Chris. Let's not do a self-fulfilling prophecy. And
the fundamentals are strong still. Yeah. Yes, yeah. They really are.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that article. Katie did a great article. Who should your SBA loan underwriter write the credit memo for? The chief credit officer, your board of directors, the regulators, the SBA inspector general, or all of the above? I'm actually going to say number 3. And the reason why I say number 3 is if the loan is over $500,000, defaults within the first 18 months, you have a very grave risk of having a guaranteed denial. Of course, we need to take care of the bank and the regulators. But my advice for all of you is write it assuming that it's going to default within 18 months. Now, there's nothing wrong with a risk. We could have a restaurant. A very good friend of mine owns a little strip mall. Some idiot plowed into one of his tenants, a Chinese restaurant. The whole place got closed down. So obviously there are risks. But Chris, how do you weigh in on this?
Well, the correct answer probably is all of the above. But
okay, I'm good with that.
But the preeminent person on this list is SBA's OIG, obviously.
And there's a number of takeaways, and we preach that, but don't say collateral's worth $1 million in computer software when it's worth nothing. Don't say you have a bunch of fleet of trucks, and these are all from the OIG, fleet of trucks that are worth $500,000, and when we go sell them to auction at $20,000. I've always said, Chris, my next job in life, I'm going to become a restaurant equipment broker, because these guys are so smart. They sell at the top of the market, and then they buy at the bottom.
Please don't get your compensation derived from what you sell the scrap metal for.
That's right. Very good. Let's go to the next poll question. Are you concerned about SBA closing down on October 1st because of the budget? It's pretty well split. I'm in the no category. I think there will be a resolution. Chris, I know you're up on the Hill talking to people. This is a bipartisan solution. I know there's technical issues. I don't see the administration or the Senate closing down the program. Chris, what do you think?
No, I agree. I don't think so. I think something's going to get resolved here.
Yeah, it's going to
They're
be
back
resolved.
in session. Yeah.
You know,
I'll be surprised if it's not.
Yeah, well, I'd be more than surprised. You know, back in the day, we were all concerned that the Republicans were going to shut down the program until Nagel and others explained to the Republicans this is a profit-making operation for the government, and there's technical issues in the weeds. I'm going to let the trade associations deal with that. I'm not concerned. I don't think you should worry about it. You know, we had the government shut down earlier this year for 30 days. That was, okay, I'll use the word a disaster, but I think we're going to be okay. Finally, we're trying to do a little research for our numbers, and I really appreciate you calling in. I respect your time. I know everyone's busy, but we track how many lines we have, but we want to know how many people are actually listening in to this broadcast. Cool. All right. Well, I know there's a couple of you out there who go into a conference room and they throw pizza at you, but I appreciate those responses because that basically doubles our numbers that we have. Hey, Chris, I want you to talk about your article you wrote, which I thought was a fantastic article. I don't know if we linked it, but Google it. Tell us about why you believe this is the golden age of business acquisition for SBA 7A lenders.
Sure. So 57% of all privately held small businesses in America are owned by baby boomers. 10,000 baby boomers are retired.
Right here.
What am I looking at you? I am. I was going to tell people to use two hands when they catch the pizza in the conference room. So 57% of all businesses are owned by baby boomers. 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day for like the next 9 years.
I'm glad you said retiring and not dying.
Well, potato, Bob. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. And I think it was the California Association of Business Brokers says that there's going to be a $10 trillion transfer of wealth of these businesses over the next 2 decades. So if that's not a golden age of business acquisition financing, which, as we all know, most small business acquisitions in America, and I'm defining small as below $5 million, are either paid for in cash, they are seller financed, or they're SBA 7A financed. So that was obviously my sort of my bias here is take a look at business acquisition financing through SBA 7A. It's going to be pretty dramatic over the next certainly 5 to 10 years, if not beyond.
I always preach riches and niches, and this is a great niche. Now, got to be careful. There's special rules for SBA. I'm not going to go through those. We have to have equity injection. But that brings us to Suzy Grainger. Suzy, what a nice transition. I'm doing a good job today.
Great segue.
How can you help a business acquisition?
So the service that our firm provides, a ROBS or rollovers business startup, lets your borrower access retirement funds tax and penalty free, and he can use them as his equity injection in his SBA 7A loan. That's my most common client.
Now, the question is, but isn't that a risk? Because now they're taking their money out of the stock market and putting it into a small business. Tell us about mitigating that risk.
Well, so the first conversation I have to have with the business owner wannabe is if you are risk adverse, maybe you shouldn't be owning your own business. But if you are willing to take that leap of faith and take that risk, why not utilize those funds you have invested in other people's businesses and invest in your own business? My, preferred client is someone that has maybe twice as much as he needs for this particular transaction. Use a portion of the retirement funds for this particular deal and leave some of it outside the business.
Very good. Suzy, I don't mean to embarrass you with this question, but you've been around for a while. How many of these transactions have you done?
Thanks, Bob. We started offering this structure in 2002, and we've helped right around 6,000 businesses to get into business utilizing the structure, and I feel really good about my small part of what's happening in Main Street because I know for a fact that that's what drives our economy.
Good for you.
By the way, I'm one of those people that have used their part of my self-directed IRA when I bought our office building that our company's in. So I do this too. Full disclosure,
I'm a client of Suzy's, and she's converted my stuff to Coleman reports. So I'm a friend, and she's done a good job. Suzy, what is the average size of a transaction?
Most folks will access somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000.
Okay.
$50,000 and above is where the process makes sense. I've seen as much as $1.5 million go, but my common guy is going to use $100,000, $200,000.
The reason why we're talking about this is a free webinar next Tuesday. Suzy's going to be discussing this. We have paid webinars where you got to pay for us for our content. This one, Suzy's doing this. She pays us to sponsor it. Suzy, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
Very good. Anyway, it's free. There's a link. Go to their website and please take advantage of that. And Suzy and I'll be hosting it, and we'll do that. Hey, we got some email questions. This is an interesting question from Paul. Paul's one of our most favorite email contributors. Can we do an SBA loan using collateral that is owned by the guarantee but on leased tribal land? And the answer is absolutely yes, but do not put into that credit memo what the value of the collateral is because it's going to be worth nothing. The tribal land, it has to go ahead, approve it. SBA is very clear that we make loans based on cash flow, but do not put in there that we think this collateral is worth it. I'm assuming this is the gas station or something. But Chris, have you ever come across this situation?
I haven't. No.
Yeah.
And I would have guessed it would have some value, but the problem is getting to the value through liquidation on tribal land is going to be.
You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So the answer is you can do it,
right,
but you be upfront with your regulators, with your chief credit officer. Yeah, we're going to take title to this property, but it's not going to be worth anything. And that's a legitimate SBA loan. You can do that. I also suggested talk to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and talk to your local district council. So you can do it, but do not represent that you have value in that collateral. Next question. This was an art. Katie, welcome to the conversation. Alec says, hey, I'm confused about Katie's reporting where we said that the borrower had an existing approval and now we're reducing the loan to the guarantee amount. And I'll answer for Katie. What the issue is here, once someone gets an approval from another SBA lender, that's it. You can't touch it. Or if you do, you need to disclose it. The issue isn't that we reduced the amount or we restructured it. The issue is we already had an approval, and now we're going to another lender. Chris, how do you handle that in the marketplace?
Well, I mean, I asked the question, and if there's already an SBA approval loan number for that loan, you're right. It's tied up. You'd actually have that other lender cancel the loan to enable the new lender to come in and get a loan on that same project. It's happen very often, but it's, if I hear that, somebody's not shooting straight, clearly.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. If I'm, I agree with you 100%. Okay, let's go to Katie. We're running out of time. Katie, tell us about Main Street Monday. What happens here?
Pretty much that's just going to be statistics here. One of our other writers wrote about this earlier this week. It looks like only about 48% of Main Street has their financing needs met. That's kind of concerning, wouldn't you say?
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, that's the highest number I've seen in that category in quite some time. That's a little surprising to me. Yeah, and maybe it's a result of the continued consolidation in the banking sector. I do know, looking at the SBA's own statistics, we're up to a whopping 14% of all banks, credit unions, non-bank lenders, CDFIs around the country that have actually made a SBA 7A loan, at least in the last 8 months. And 14% strikes me as pretty low. So maybe that is alignment here with the needs are being met.
And I'm a big stat guy, so I always love these statistics, and we can go, what we're doing. I think what's important of this is you can look through this and you can target your marketing for what you want to do. If you want to be in that field of 100,000 or less, or a little bit higher, or whatever. But we all understand. Not everyone's going to get a loan. You understand? This is a great, great story. Katie, you interviewed Derrick Burge. Tell us about that.
Right. So I had the honor of interviewing Derrick Burge last Friday. He's a great guy. We spoke a lot about his family. He's going to be the third generation in his family to be an SBA lender. And his grandfather, Wayne Evans, I don't know if you know him. I think you do, right?
I worked with Wayne Evans. Wayne Evans was one of our best brokers back in the day. Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's going to help train Derrick along with his uncle, Brian Evans, and they're going to help train him to do this stuff. They're training him to be an SBA lender. He's very excited.
You did a nice article on that. It was a nice interview. It's a nice story. It's nice. There's nothing wrong with this type of story. You got to love it. Right, Chris? That's
right.
All right. And then we talked about this.
You like this story. Yeah. Which is a whole lot wrong, but
we've gotten some feedback on we're beating up on a bank serve, but this is what's important. And I said this last week, I'm going to say it. Chris and I are partners in a business, and we have a dispute. We go to court, we settle it. I lie to my wife, I'm going to get divorced. I lie to the government, I'm going to jail. And that's the whole point of why we're pushing these stories.
Yep. Totally agree.
Moving on. This is sort of pop culture, and I read this story yesterday. If you do not know this story, Google it. Watch the video, The Man in the Red Bandana. Yeah, and I got my I got somewhere here. I have it. I think, look, the reason why I'm talking about this, I am a history major, and I transferred into the financial world. But I'm very, very sensitive to history. I think we need to understand our history. And this is just an amazing story. Google it, watch the video, and reflect. That's all I'm going to say.
Can I add one little comment to this?
Absolutely.
When we talked about this last night, I didn't have any red bandanas in my house. So I went out to Walmart and got deeply discounted red bandanas, I guess. I don't know, from clearance. And I brought them into my office, put them on all my employees' desks late last night. And when I came in this morning, there was buzz. What are these red bandanas? What's going on? Who put this in? Had to have been Chris, because he's the only one that would have done something like it.
Well,
And
Chris,
sure
you also
enough,
have,
go
you have a
ahead.
you have a personal story of 9/11 as well.
Yeah, I do. But let me finish this if you really want to talk. But my point is, I sometimes like to do silly stuff like that to see if my staff is paying attention and what they can get out of this. And by about 9 o'clock, they'd finally figured out, they'd Googled it, and they'd figured out that what the red bandana signified. Only I had not gotten it to them yesterday like I should have, like I meant to.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but oh well. Anyway, but it's a great ESPN documentary, and he was number 19 on the Boston College lacrosse team. We're in 2019, so I thought that was kind of interesting. You really want to tell you my story?
Only if you want to. That's a personal story. It's your call.
Yeah, I don't talk about it much, but between working from GE to Heller Financial back in the mid to late 1990s, I decided to go into using insurance capital for credit enhancements. I worked for Marsh & McLennan Companies. I was a consultant there. And we had different practices, and one of the practices that I was working a lot with was the environmental practice at the time. And fortunately, my daughter was born 11 days before 9/11, and my wife had put the prohibition on us traveling. Me specifically traveling. So I missed my meeting that morning at the first tower at Marsh. Unfortunately, Marsh lost 287 people that day. So it's also my wife's birthday, 9/11. So it has a lot of, there's a lot of emotion tied to 9/11.
Well, we all lost friends.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's thank you for that story. I know you don't want to talk about it. Hey, as I just made you talk about it.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that.
I just ruined your day. I probably ruined a bunch of other people's days. Hey, fall training begins in a couple of weeks. Take advantage of that. We have underwriting, closing, and express training. So please do that. Oh, we're doing something different. Joseph has gotten smart. For those of you who are listening in, you can use a promo code to receive $100 off the $12.95 price. So we'll do that. And we're also using the promo codes on our secondary market, which is Katie's going to be going there in January. I think, Chris, you're going to be there as a speaker. It is a great event. Get your CFO there. Get your department managers there. We had to move it. You don't care about logistics. We had to move it to the first week of January for a couple of reasons. But nothing better than to be in Washington, D.C. on January 8th.
Maybe other things. But yeah, maybe other places.
Bring your scarf and coat.
We'll go with that.
Here are our upcoming webinars. As we said, the free one is the 401k, 5 critical C's of SBA lending. Lance is doing that. I'm doing the USDAB one. And then we're also doing the correctly how to calculate cash flow. And again, the reason why we're doing the promo code, we raised our prices. We got not one complaint, but for those of you who are loyal listeners, we'll honor our previous pricing. And these are the upcoming events, and we always promote those. We promote the regional conferences. We promote the national conferences. Hey, 10:24, I respect your time. Next week, I will be here. Katie, I assume you'll be there. Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.